Welcome back, Chappelle. All right. I am, needless to say, absolutely blown away by how amazing I know that all of y'all are going to do in this unit. Like, it is something about the Renaissance that is just clicking inside of y'all's brains, right? Much like Rome that came before it, this is one of those things where it's like, it just makes sense. You know what I mean? It just makes sense. It's not like the Middle Ages where we're like, who's Clovis and Charlemagne and all these other randos and like all these people, where do they come from? It's going to be fine though, okay? But this is about where we left off in class, right? We're talking about specific Renaissance ideas, right? We were talking about Renaissance, of course, means rebirth in French. And also the Renaissance itself is going to start in Italy, and it's going to lead to a renewed interest in art, literature, science, learning, and this explosion and rebirth of Greek and Roman ideals are going to come flooding back, right? So also right here, where he says people started to think more like the ancient Greeks and Romans, okay, but Greeks / Romans, and believe in the ability to create and achieve, right? So a lot of the Renaissance is just going to hinge upon this concept that people's ideas of their abilities to create and make art and also produce intellectual value is going to explode forward. Now we know, we talked about this in class. It's not like someone one day sat up and was like, I'm just going to be smarter today, right? A lot of this is encouraged by a good, solid, stabilized, post-late Middle Ages economy, right? Following the Black Death, following the Avignon Papacy, following the Great Schism, following all that stuff, you're now leading to a stable economy held up mostly by the northern Italian states, or at least the bannerment and leading people in this movement are the northern Italian states, which are going to lead us into the Renaissance, right? So, moving forward, though, we know that thinkers are going to begin to re-examine old ideas. They're going to look back to the Greeks and the Romans and begin to translate those works from Latin, work them into vernacular languages, right? And they're going to even use those old ideas to discover new ideas, right? This education is going to lead to the quality that is absolutely at the center of the Renaissance movement, humanism, okay? Humanism is this very all-important belief. I need you to underline it, circle it, star it, make it look like it's exploding, heart eyes, heart shapes, like whatever you want next to it. Very important term, okay? So, humanism. Say it again with me. Humanism, right? Humanism is huge. It is the thing. The Renaissance is humanism and the humanism is Renaissance. They are two ideas that are just not separable, right? They go together. Now, the most visible pieces of humanism are seen in the explosion of art that came forward during this time period, right? Now, this right here is one of the most famous examples of humanism, right? This right here is the Vitruvian Man, right? The Vitruvian Man, write that down, Vitruvian. The Vitruvian Man is going to be an image and symbol of Renaissance ideals. Now, this right here, not even necessarily a quote-unquote famous piece of artwork. This Vitruvian Man was actually found and seen inside of the journals of Leonardo da Vinci, right? So Leonardo da Vinci actually had this item, this thing drawn inside one of his journals so he could better understand the proportionality of the human body, right? So that actually the human body, the human form is proportional, right? Your arm length is certainly indicative to the other areas of your body. Your head size is indicative to other areas of your body. So by understanding the proportionality of the human form, he could make human forms like the Mona Lisa, which we talked about for 2 seconds today in class as an example of the project you're getting into. He can make things like the Mona Lisa look more realistic, right? Hyperrealism, very important in the Renaissance period, right? But we need to get a better handle on this. We need to understand specifically what humanism is, okay? Humanism, in the long run, is the study of worldly subjects, right? We're putting that in quotes, okay? Or like putting that inside of this like little brackets, okay? It's a study of worldly subjects, right? Instead of focusing on how do I get to heaven, deciphering ancient texts of the Bible, understanding the ideas of the church and how that actually interacts with the modern day lives of individuals and their eventual afterlife, it's focusing instead on, why is the sky blue? How do I better represent that bird in my art, right? Where does weather come from? What is money? Like understanding the world around us, right? The study of those secular things, okay? And it's going to focus on individual achievement and growth, okay? Another big part of humanism is not only asking those questions, but focusing on yourself as a person and how you will find answers to them, right? Renaissance men or Renaissance figures were those who could respond to all situations, right? You were a writer, a musician, a linguist, an artist. You were somebody that looked at the secular scape and you were like, I can do more. I can do more, I can be better, I can create more, I can be the best potential person that I can be. And what does all this kind of like link up with? The concepts of secularism, right? Secularism, the ideas of this existence here, not the existence outside, not the existence after death, and understanding how religion plays its ideas into moral values and things like that. But instead, humanism is working into like how and why and what caused the growth of the Christian church during the historic time periods, right? Learning from history, studying history, the things that happened, the things that might happen. That's humanism, right? So secularism, focusing on those things that are in front of us, okay? Now, really quick, and as we already know, the Renaissance is going to begin in Italy, okay? Now, before you write any of this down, do me a favor. Above it, be like, there were actually two Renaissances. There's two Renaissances, not just one. There's the Italian Renaissance and the Northern Renaissance, right? The Italian Renaissance, though, comes first, okay? Now, why, though? Why? We got to kind of beg that question a little bit. Why Italy? Why is the Italian Renaissance first? Why not the Northern one? Why isn't Finland this like the area of the Renaissance? Why not Sweden? Wie nix Deutschland? Ja, nein? I mean, why not, right? Why not? Wie nix, right? So now look, really quick, the big reason is because Italy was the home of the former Roman Empire, right? Italy was the Mecca, the epicenter, the actual heart of the intellectual value that these Renaissance idealists are pulling from, right? We know that the Romans grew to be the most powerful, largest, and dominant empire that the world had ever seen in ancient civilizations, right? Spanning all the way from about circa 700 BC, all the way to 476 AD when you're discussing the Western Roman Empire, right? The Eastern Roman Empire, you can all the way till 1453. But still, when you're talking about Rome, you understand that not only was Rome amazing, but Rome took the things that Greece did and made them even better, right? So Rome was focused inside of Italy. So there were ruins there for study. There were writings there for translating. There were artifacts there in good condition, still for interpretation, right? Whoever got Brunelleschi's dome, Brunelleschi, the guy who actually designed the building that I showed you today that my wife and I were standing in front of, that guy went to Rome, studied ancient Roman ruins to understand how to create a dome in the Renaissance era, right? That is a huge part of his development, okay? This ancient Roman Empire and the leftovers from it being in Italy was a huge reason to why Italy was the area of the Renaissance. And as we know, Italy was still divided into a lot of small states, right? It is not a contiguous country. It is not like the nation of Italy like it is today. That actually didn't happen until 1861, all right? Now, Italy is still chunked up and divided into a lot of small states, okay? And I'm also going to check that year. I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling that I'm not right. Unification of Italy. So, 1861, please be right. 1870. So close. All right, so, but anyway, now, so what I'm saying, though, is Italy, the way you understand it, the country of Italy, not like that during the Renaissance, right? It's still chunked up into a lot of states, okay? But the big one that they're all still connected to in the center is the Papal States, right? The Roman Catholic Church, the country that was the Roman Catholic Church right there smack in the middle, right? Now, the European also center for banking was inside of Italy. That's another reason why. So we have three reasons already out the gate why it happened in Italy. One, it's the home of the Roman Empire. Two, it's the home of the Catholic Church, which is also bringing in a ton of money during this time period. And three, it's also the center for banking throughout all of Europe, right? Four, because of the economic return to Italy, right? And five, the fifth reason why it's got to be Italy is the growth of these people, right? The growth of patrons. Now, do you think those five things could possibly be on your test for this unit? Hi, I'm Mr. Terry. Have we met? Of course they will, right? So the growth of patrons, though, is a big one, okay? But I'll go over the 5 again. What did we say? We said it's the home of the ancient Roman Empire. A lot of artifacts around for study, right? 2, it's the center of the Catholic Church, right? A huge amount of money coming in from the rest of the continent of Europe into that particular place, actually allowing money for development. 3, we've got a return of the economy from the Middle Ages, which is very, very important. 4, it's the European Center for Banking. 5, it's the growth of patronage, right? Patrons, let's talk about what patrons are, okay? This is a very important one. That's why we got a star next to it. Patrons are financial supporters, okay? So let's say hypothetically, who is a child that I know is a fantastic artist? Oh, Ella Freeman. Ella Freeman, phenomenal artist. The child is great. I don't know if you've seen the Gothic architecture poster that hangs in my classroom. She's a very good artist, though, right? Let's say hypothetically, I wanted my room to have just the most ridiculous piece of art inside of it. That I wanted my ceiling painted in a gigantic scene of me fighting a dragon. All right, so and then I just wanted wow, and this huge panel piece all over my ceiling, right? I would pay Ella to come in and make that for me. Therein lies what I am. I am the patron, right? I am the patron. I am the person who gave her money to focus on that humanistic idea of making that artwork. Right? That is the growth of patronage, okay? Now, really quickly, though, we got multiple types of patrons, okay? Jot this one down in all capital letters. The Catholic Church was a huge patron of the arts during this time period, right? A massive patron of the arts during this time period. So, we are seeing a growth in patronage, not only from the Catholic Church, but we are also seeing it from private families, right? So, we're seeing certain families growing to be very, very powerful. And the most prominent and powerful one, the Medici, right? The Medici. Say it with me again. Medici, all right? Medici, not Medici. Ew, gross. The Medici, right? The Medici family of Florence is the banking hub of Renaissance Italy. These guys are the informal and it's sometimes formal rulers of Florence for over 300 years, right? They became the leaders of this thing known as the Signory that actually exists inside of Florence. Even though it was sort of a republic, it really wasn't. And they created the most powerful bank that Europe had ever seen, right? They made so much money that they started minting money for Florence, and it was known as the florin, right? You could actually find a florin coin, right? So they created this money, and then they started distributing it to their accounts and also to their clientele, and that thing, that florin, became the most universally accepted piece of currency throughout the entire continent of Europe during their time period, right? During the 1400s, the florin was the most universally accepted piece of currency because it was created, minted, and also financed by the Medici family. These people are ridiculous. The Medici family is wildly wealthy, insanely wealthy. And we are going to talk about so many artworks that they, in fact, paid for, including the Annunciation, the David, right? Including, in part, the Duomo itself, including, I don't know, what's another one that they definitely paid for? Oh, the Primavera, the Birth of Venus. They paid for all of these things, okay? So they're huge patrons of major artworks, and because of families like them, that is the reason why the Renaissance was continuing to roll forward and get off the ground, right? Yes, Rome becomes a hub of Renaissance art because of the Catholic Church, but Florence becomes a hub because of the Medici family. Milan has the Sforza family, right? The HRE has another family that we'll talk about later. Now, anyway, so I want to say I'm in class. I do not want to be misinterpreted, all right? So, and with this, now that you've got money and all this stuff floating around, you're going to see new artistic styles arise, right? You're going to see art that's going to be much more stylized, art that's going to represent humans and landscapes appropriately. You're going to see also, next to this, realism, right? Realism, R-E-A-L-I-S-M. Realism. Not only is it going to represent humans and landscapes, it's going to represent them as if they would have been seen, right? So it's going to make it look like the tree outside of my window. When I paint it, it's going to look exactly like the tree outside of my window, right? If I were to paint a portrait of Rhiannon, it's going to look like Rhiannon. It's not going to look like a Van Gogh version of Rhiannon. Hyperrealism is going to make it look like Rhiannon looks in real life, okay? So, that is a big thing here, okay? Perspective, real life art, depth, proportion, contour, shading is going to be a big thing that comes back in the Renaissance time period. Shading is going to make art look more textured, much more real. And also another big one that's going to come back, sculptors. Full-scale sculpting and anatomically correct sculpting is going to emerge during this time period, right? And it's going to come back as if it were coming back from Rome. Because let's start with sculpting, right? That right there, that is Augustus at Ponte Verde, right? That is the victory statue of Augustus after he won a major battle against his enemies, right? And this was supposed to be the image of him as the imperator, right? Awesome, phenomenal statue. I want a little version of it so badly, all right? So, but that right there was made in the Roman Empire before or right after the birth of Christ. That actually right there was made around 20 BC, or not 20 BC, 20 AD, okay? So that right there, a phenomenally important statue, okay? Actually, it might be 20 BC. I think it might be. I'll check on that later. But that right there was made before Rome ever fell. But then when Rome fell, you start to see art like this. That is art from the Middle Ages. You went from to oh, from yes to no. All right, so like Middle Age art, or what you would consider Middle Age art, was very gross, okay? Unproportional, not detailed, everyone has the same face, right? Like, so not very good, not three-dimensional, very flat, not realistic, right? And then as the Middle Ages rolled forward, it started to get a little bit better. But still, it's lacking that realism. It's lacking that depth. It's lacking that proportion. This is supposed to be Mary and Christ, and this is considered one of the best like pieces of art to come out of the Middle Ages. She looks really weird, and Christ got a real big forehead and a really short neck. He also is very out of proportion with Mary, right? But that's made in the Middle Ages. They didn't have the same kind of money, funds, or like actual available talent to make the best things possible, right? And a lot of this is indicative of the lower economies that existed during the Middle Ages going into the Renaissance, right? So then you got this. This right here, that is Renaissance sculpture, right? You had this massive return of depth and art and symbolism, right? These have all been Renaissance artworks. That is the birth of Venus. This is Lady with Pomegranate, which is one of my favorite Botticelli pieces, right? So this is the Lady with Pomegranate by Botticelli, and as you can see, this is Renaissance art, right? It doesn't look like this anymore now, or this anymore. Now it looks like this, right? We're seeing a dramatic growth in realism, proportionality, shading, depth, and symbolism as well. All right, so symbolism. Go ahead and put that on your list up top too. Symbolism is going to return, okay? Because as you can see, this is Mary, and this piece is entitled Lady with Pomegranate, right? Or Madonna with Pomegranate, okay? Because look, it's Mary, Christ, right? And they're actually, Christ is the viewer looking straight at us. And then we have the choirs of angels behind Mary, showing the divine prominence that this child would be, the relation of Mary to the Father, right? The relation of Mary as the mother of God to the Father and the holiness that exists above her. You can see a faint halo, which is supposed to symbolize her holiness. We can tell that this is Gabriel because he's holding a lily, right? So that is symbolism right there. How can we tell this is Gabriel? Because the lily of which he holds in his hands. And now, what is the big thing that stands out to you? Some of you are like, why is there a pomegranate? Because check this out. In the symbolism of this piece, including the very faint halo that exists behind the head of Christ, not only is he also motioning his hand towards the viewer, but look, the pomegranate is placed the same place that the flaming heart of Christ is always placed in every sculpture or image of Christ, right? And the pomegranate is filled with tiny little red seeds, right? And those tiny little red seeds are supposed to symbolize the drops of blood that this child will one day spill to save humanity. That's Renaissance art, right? That right there is Renaissance art. None of this other shenanigans, okay? Boom! Okay, so bang. That's where we're going to stop right there. That is what I'll leave you with. And on that note, I'll see you guys soon. Y'all have a good one.